Good morning. Welcome to Townsends Wilderness Homestead. I'm Brandon Oswald, the blacksmith here. Today we are going to make a chisel from an old worn file. When they get worn out, what do you do with it? You turn it into another tool. Be resourceful and use up everything we have here on the homestead. Now, a lot of original examples would take a file, they would grind the edge on one end and then stick a handle on it. We're going to go a little farther today and actually squish this down and upset it and make a good nice shelf, a little half for the handle to stick on, and we're going to make a really good usable tool out of this. Well, we started this morning by getting our fire going, and we want to burn it down so we have some nice clean coals. Then we put our file in here and we want to heat it up, but we don't want to heat it up too much because you can overheat it and it will melt the metal. So we have to get it hot enough so it's soft and you can work it, but not too hot that you melt it. And using our cob forge here that we made, you can see it's got some cracks and I've had to repair it several times. Pay attention in the future because we're going to be doing some more work on this and changing the design a little bit. And it'll be really interesting to see a different design and to use a different design of forge. So we're going to watch this and just get it the right temperature. Not too much air, but enough to keep it hot. You can take it out. We're looking for about 1500 degrees, and you can tell by the color of it. The 18th century blacksmiths, they weren't going by temperature in degrees, they were going by temperature in the color. So they knew by the color if it was soft enough to work or if it needed more heat, depending on the different metals they were working with. It was glowing when I first pulled it out, but it's not anymore. So it needs to go back in and heat up a little bit more. We're trying to heat up this area right here because that's going to get squished down so that we can make a better seat for the handle. Then once we get that done, then we can work on the other end. So what I'm doing right now is taking the flat rectangular and trying to smush it into a square. And after I do that, then I'll upset it with the tang sticking through the hole. So I'll make a wider plate for the handle, the wooden handle to strike up against. Make it stronger, make it last longer, and actually transfer the weight if you're going to use a mallet. So this would be the way to make the chisel for that. Now as I'm squishing it down, when I start upsetting it and I'm driving it with the hammer, you want to use a junkier hammer. You don't want a nice perfect face on it because the end that you're hitting is still the hard file and that will ding up the face of your hammer. So you always want to pay attention to what hammer you're using for what process. The blacksmiths always have a bunch of hammers and that's exactly why. You can see here the bottom of it's getting a little wider and that's what we want. We want to squish that up so that this has more material there to work with because we want to make this face as wide as we can so that the handle has something to hit against. And this process is called upsetting. Now it's a long process. You have to be patient, heat it up, hammer it and upset it and heat it, and it's a back and forth thing. So you just have to be patient and don't get too upset in your upsetting. So the thing is just to keep at it and just to keep squishing that up. And the further we get along, you'll see this will get even wider there. And once we get it wide enough, we can start squishing it that way. And then we can get on to the business end, the sharp end. A little bit of patience and perseverance and you'll get there. It still looks like a file, right? Well, we did do some differences to help the handle fit. What we did was, instead of it being swooped up, we brought that in to make a nice flat shelf for the end of the handle to fit on. So we made this over twice as thick, so that'll give a little bit extra. You could just sharpen the end of a file and stick the handle on there. Sooner or later the handle will split. So just doing these little steps will help make the handle last a lot longer. So now that we have the handle end done with the tang and the flat shelf for it to seat on, the next step is to shape this end. You notice how it's tapered? We're going to bring that up so that the sides are straight, hammer a bevel onto it, quench it, and then we can sharpen it and put it to use. This is going really well. We're doing the same process, the upsetting process. What we're trying to do is squish this up so that the sides will be straight all the way. It'll make it cut better. And to do that, we heat it up and we'll take it to the anvil, same process as the other side, and we'll hit it from the top while it's hot. Well, that part's hot. And it'll squish that down and give us that extra material on the edge to make it straight. We have our chisel here with the straight edges and the bevel already hammered into it. The next step is to kind of clean it up. And to do that, since it's a file and it's already hard, we got to do it hot. It's called hot filing. That way the material is soft and we can work it and get it to just the right shape before we sharpen it. The process is we'll heat it up, take it over to the vise, and file it to shape. We have all the metal work done on our chisel. We did the hot filing, we got the bevel on it and everything. Now we're ready to put a handle on it. And what we're going to do is just heat up the tang and just heat the handle up and press it on. We'll only go up to a little bit, leave just a little bit left of a space. That way you can drive it on and it'll actually stick. If you go all the way down while it's hot, it'll be loose. So we don't want to go all the way. That's the next step. After that, we can put the final sharp edge on it and we'll have a working chisel. Once you get it down, got to leave that little gap. You can't go all the way because then it'll be loose. So you go down just a little bit, leave that little gap, then you cool everything down, and then you can drive it on. It'll make it nice and tight. And I learned that from you know, paying attention to somebody else and learning from somebody else and just passing it on, and you know, that's how we learn. So the handle and everything looks great. We've got it sharpened here. Let's go see if it works. This chisel is cutting great. It's just what we need here on the homestead. It's amazing to be able to take something that was worn out and give it a new purpose, recycling. Very little was thrown away on a homestead, and this is a perfect example of that. Now the process of doing this, it's so simple, anybody can do it. I really encourage you to try it at home, because you don't even have to go through as much as I did, but it'll really help. The first thing I did was upset this, which upsetting is hammering it on the end while it's hot to make it flare out so you could squish the material together. So we upset this end, and then we made a shoulder so that the original file had a concave. We want it square so that the handle seats up nice. Then we upset the tip so that we could get a nice straight edge on either side. We hammered our bevel, and then we sharpened it. Putting the handle on, that's really neat. Doing it while it's hot, you just have to make sure to stop when you still have a little bit left to go. Let it all cool down, and then drive it on with a hammer, and that'll give you a nice tight fit. Simple project that anybody can do, and we're going to get a lot of use out of this here on the homestead. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.